Welcome to Lady E's Dark Tales. What if the most haunted server wasn't just corrupted code, but something that watched you from the void and followed you home? Tonight's digital horror story takes you deep into a glitched Roblox server, where one player discovers a chilling truth about lost players, corrupted files, and a presence that never logs out. Dim the lights, unplug your devices, and brace yourself for an eerie descent into digital paranoia in a story I call Teleport Failed. Target does not exist.
I found the video file buried in my Windows Shadow copies at 3 a.m, 3 weeks after I thought I'd purged every trace of that cursed server from my system. The timestamp showed it had been recorded during my final session in Lobby 0, but I had no memory of making it. In the clip, my avatar stood alone in that impossible white void, but the camera wasn't positioned on me. It was behind me, looking through something else's eyes at my digital form, something that had been watching me the entire time. The final line of corrupted chat text still burned across the bottom of the screen. Teleport failed. Target does not exist. But every time I booted up my computer after that discovery, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still trying to reconnect, still reaching through the digital void to drag me back to that place where lost players go to disappear forever. But let me back up and explain how I ended up trapped in a Roblox server that technically shouldn't exist, because understanding the technical impossibility of what happened makes it so much worse. My name is Isabella Johnson. Most people call me Izzy, and I'm a 22-year-old cybersecurity student with what you might call an unhealthy obsession with digital horror. I've built a small but dedicated YouTube following by breaking down haunted ARGs, analyzing cursed game code, and debunking the technical aspects of supposedly supernatural gaming phenomena. I'm the person who explains why that haunted Pokemon cartridge was just corrupted save data, or how those creepy Minecraft seeds were created using world generation exploits. I used to think there was no such thing as a genuinely haunted server, just broken code, packet loss, and too many 12-year-olds with overactive imaginations. My whole brand was built on the foundation that every digital ghost story had a logical, technical explanation waiting to be uncovered. I approached each investigation with the methodical precision of someone who understood that computers only do what they're programmed to do, nothing more. That analytical mindset served me well until the night I decided to investigate Doors, that popular Roblox horror game where players navigate through procedurally generated hotel rooms while avoiding various monsters. There had been reports circulating on obscure forums about a glitch seed that supposedly allowed players to bypass the elevator entirely, landing them in some kind of debug room that wasn't supposed to be accessible. My theory was simple and rational. Someone had figured out how to inject backroom-style areas into Doors using exploit scripts, creating the illusion of accessing hidden content. It was exactly the kind of technical trickery I specialized in exposing. I gathered 3 other testers from my usual crew, people who understood the importance of proper documentation and controlled testing environments. That Saturday night, I loaded up a clean instance of Doors and input the modified seed that was supposed to trigger the glitch. The plan was straightforward: spawn in, document whatever exploit was being used, and debunk another digital urban legend for my audience. 3 of us materialized in the normal elevator, just as expected. The 4th player, a guy who went by the handle DarkRift88, didn't appear with us. Instead, we received a system message that made my stomach drop. Teleport failed. Target does not exist. Well, and here's where my methodical approach started to break down. Anyway, we assumed DarkRift had simply rage quit or lost connection, which happens constantly in Roblox. But a few minutes later, he messaged our Discord group chat, asking where we were, and describing walls that were pure white with no visible door. When we told him we were still in the normal game, he stopped responding entirely. His Roblox status remained stuck on in-game for days afterward, but his username never appeared in any server list. It was like he'd been absorbed into the system itself, existing somewhere between servers in a digital purgatory that shouldn't have been possible. That's when my obsessive side kicked in. I spent the next week trying to recreate the exact conditions that had caused Dark Rift's disappearance. I replayed the same seed solo 37 times. Yes, I counted, with various combinations of disabled plugins, stripped map assets, and modified client settings. Each attempt yielded normal results until the 38th try, when everything went wrong. The moment I spawned in, my screen stuttered like a damaged video file trying to load. I wasn't in the familiar elevator or any recognizable part of doors. Instead, I found myself standing in a room that defied every principle of game design I'd ever learned. The walls were pure white, not textured white, but the kind of flat, lifeless white that indicated missing assets or incomplete rendering. There were no lighting effects, no shadows, no environmental details that would suggest this was an intentional game space. A message blinked at the top of my screen in system font. Lobby 0, no return set. My first instinct was relief. This had to be a placeholder map, some kind of debug room that developers used for testing. I'd accidentally glitched into back-end infrastructure, which was unusual, but not supernatural. When I tried to exit using the escape key, however, nothing happened. The key press simply didn't register, as if the game had somehow severed the connection between my inputs and the client. Oh. But here's where things took a turn from weird to genuinely impossible. Moving on, I checked my recording software and discovered that OBS was still capturing footage, but none of my keyboard or mouse inputs were being logged by the system. It was as if the game was running independently of my control, following some script or logic that I hadn't initiated. That's when my avatar moved, without any input from me. Yikes. So that's the moment I realized I wasn't just observing a glitch anymore. Where was I? Right. At some point, my screen went completely black. Not a crash or a freeze, but a deliberate fade to black like a scene transition. When the image returned, I was viewing my avatar from a third-person perspective, the camera positioned several feet behind my character, as if someone else had taken control of the viewpoint. The disturbing part was that I wasn't controlling anything. My avatar stood perfectly still while the camera slowly panned around the white void, revealing details I hadn't noticed before. On the far wall, user tags began materializing one by one, each accompanied by a timestamp and a faint red glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. The names that appeared made my blood run cold. Braden_V2. That was a username I recognized from old Minecraft forums. SakuraGal44. A girl I'd played Roblox with years ago who'd suddenly stopped logging in. And at the bottom of the growing list, Izzy Flores Dev. My own username, timestamped at 0. The walls began filling with hundreds of user tags, a digital memorial to players who had somehow ended up in this impossible space. Some were people I'd encountered in various games over the years. Others were usernames I hadn't seen online in so long I'd assumed their owners had simply moved on from gaming. But here they were, cataloged and preserved in this white void like specimens in some cosmic database. That's when the chat window opened, displaying text that hadn't been typed by any visible user. But more disturbing than the source was the fact that I could hear the words being spoken aloud, despite having no microphone enabled and all audio devices unplugged from my system. The voice was androgynous and mechanical, like text-to-speech software trying to simulate human emotion. It told me that the lobby remembered who had left, and that the rest had been smart enough to forget. Then it said something that made my skin crawl. It missed my signal and wanted me to stay logged in. And that's when my engineering brain finally kicked in with the appropriate response. But I digress. I hard crashed the entire system. Not just the game, but the whole computer. I yanked the power cord from the wall, held down the power button until everything went dark, then spent the next hour formatting my drive and burning every file I could find that had any connection to that session. For 3 weeks, I thought I'd successfully purged whatever malicious code had infected my system. I rebuilt my operating system from scratch, reinstalled all my software from clean sources, and ran every security scan known to the cybersecurity community. Everything came back clean. But Lobby Zero kept showing up anyway. Sometimes it appeared in developer mode when I was testing other games, listed as an available server despite being impossible to access. Sometimes it manifested as a phantom entry in my join history, showing Lobby 0-1/1 online, even though I'd never intentionally connected to any server by that name. Most unsettling of all, it would occasionally replace the thumbnails of legitimate games with blank white boxes bearing the text, "Teleport ready." The video file I mentioned at the beginning was just the latest evidence that whatever I'd encountered in that white void hadn't been contained by my digital purge. Hidden in my system's shadow copies, backup files that Windows creates automatically, was footage of my final moments in Lobby Zero. The timestamp showed it had been recorded during my last session, but I had no memory of the camera angle it captured. In the clip, my avatar stood motionless in the center of that featureless room while the viewpoint slowly circled around me. But the perspective wasn't coming from my character or any fixed camera position. It was moving with the deliberate, predatory patience of something studying its prey, something that had been watching me the entire time I thought I was alone in that digital prison. The most terrifying part wasn't what the video showed, but what it implied. If something in Lobby Zero had been observing me, recording me, studying my behavior, then my presence there hadn't been an accident. I hadn't stumbled into a debug room or triggered a random glitch. I'd been selected, cataloged, and added to that growing list of usernames on the wall. Well, and here's what keeps me awake at night now. Moving on, every time I power up my computer, I feel something probing at the edges of my network connection. Not malware or hackers, those I could detect and counter. This is something else, something that exists in the spaces between servers, in the gaps where data packets get lost and forgotten. I've stopped investigating digital horror stories. I've privated my YouTube channel and deleted most of my research files. Because I've learned that some mysteries are better left unsolved, especially when the answer involves becoming part of the very phenomenon you're trying to understand. Sometimes, late at night when I'm working on assignments, I catch glimpses of that white void reflected in my monitor. Just for a split second, like a subliminal image burned into my retinas. And sometimes I hear that mechanical voice echoing through my headphones, reminding me that the lobby remembers who left, asking when I'm coming back to complete my registration. The truth is, I don't think I ever really escaped Lobby Zero. I think I'm still there, standing among those hundreds of other lost players, while something wearing my face sits at my computer, typing these words, pretending to be the real Isabella Johnson. Because that's what the lobby does. It remembers who left, and it keeps trying to reconnect them. So if you ever encounter a server called Lobby Zero, if you ever see that message about teleport failure and non-existent targets, don't investigate. Don't try to understand the technical impossibility of what you're seeing. Just close the game, unplug your computer, and never look back. Because some digital spaces aren't meant for human visitors, and once you've been cataloged in their database, they'll never stop trying to bring you home.
So, we have reached the conclusion of this unsettling digital horror story. A cursed server, a missing player, and a ghost in the code. Was it ever really just a glitch? Or have we uncovered a virtual purgatory, watching and waiting for its next target? Would you dare connect to an unknown server after midnight? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this cyber nightmare, like this video and subscribe to Lady E's Dark Tales for more haunted tech horrors. Until next time, keep in mind that the server always remembers who left.